All right. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Sandy Vaile, and it's very nice to be invited to chat here today. I'm going to just share a little bit about my journey to publication with one of the fiction industry heavyweights, Simon & Schuster in America, as well as perhaps a few little tips on how relevant you can make storytelling in your business. So I guess you see, writing a novel is a lot like running a business in some ways. There's tons of people out there, they're doing it successfully and they're sharing all their secrets, but it's not so easy when you come to do it yourself. So there's a million moving parts in a novel, and it's kind of hard to know how to slot them all in together, a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, exactly like running a business. So the secret is knowing that there's a struggle at the core of all good stories. It's the same when we're telling a personal story in our businesses. We think about the frustrations, the difficulties, the failures that we've suffered, and those things drove us to be the people that we are today. And through them is how we learn to succeed. So that's what we want to share with people. I've been telling stories since I was a little girl, writing about fairies floating in bubbles and dreaming of someday being this fabulous, famous, published author. Unfortunately, published doesn't equal famous, by the way. And by the time I hit my 40s, my childhood dream was kind of a distant memory. I'd buried it under this weight of providing for a family and, you know, all the daily stuff that we all get buried under, which I'm sure you can all relate to. So, of course, I'd love to tell you that I was struck by genius and penned this absolute bestseller and just got picked up immediately by one of the big publishing houses. But that's kind of like winning a lotto. It's not really realistic. So here's the warts and all version instead. I started when I was about 40 by reading the Harry Potter series that my friend gave to me. I hadn't really been reading very much fiction for a while, busy with baby magazines and stuff. And it really just, it reignited my creative soul, and I just got so desperate to write again. So I've never been one to do things by halves, and I thought, I won't bother with short stories and journaling. Nah, I'm going to write a whole novel. Nothing to it, right? So I dreamed up a couple of characters to put to life, and I put them in a difficult situation, and I started writing. And because I was a tiny bit enthusiastic, I wrote 60,000 words in the first 6 weeks. But unfortunately, the family eventually wanted to get fed and have clean clothes and stuff like that. So I had to slow down just a wee bit after a while. But I kept on moving forward. And what I did discover was the more words I had, the more difficult it became to see clearly where that story was going. And I liken that to business, because the more moving parts you have in your business and the more customers and stuff, sometimes it can be really unclear what that through line is and what the priority, like we're speaking about this morning, the priority task and the main thing you should be working on is. So that first book represented a huge learning curve for me, because I'd left all these pesky little things like grammar and literary devices way behind in high school and had to learn them all again. And it would have been really easy to get stuck when I got, towards the end of that book and things got really hard, and just either start a new story and ditch it, or just get stuck forever in a loop trying to fix that one. But I had already figured out one difference between me and the published authors, and that was that they actually finished the book. So I made sure that I kept plugging on forwards and got that done. And I finished that first book in 9 months. And it still is in the bottom drawer collecting dust, which we won't talk about. I think I'll call that my tester book. That brings me to the part of the journey where I had to embrace rejection, because there was lots of it. But I also got a few scraps of, positive feedback along the way. And like we do in our businesses, you've got to celebrate all of those little wins and stay the course, basically. And for some unknown reason, when I sat down to write that second book, this movie popped into my head that I'd seen way back in the 90s. I have no idea why it popped into my head, but it was something about the injustice, the emotions I felt in that movie that had stayed with me and affected me all of those years. And that's when I started to realize that it's the characters that drew me into the story, not really the exciting action and, the clever plot twists and stuff. I wanted to feel something through those characters. And to do that in my own stories, I had to draw on my own experiences to conjure up those emotions and vivid situations. So that's what we're doing when we tell a business story as well. We're relating our own experiences of overcoming obstacles and working to change the way we think so that we can demonstrate what it takes to get the success that we've had. So I really dug deep when I wrote my next book, which was called Inheriting Fear, and I drew on my experiences in the hospitality industry, struggling to make ends meet when I left home really young, and also the devastating effects of alcoholism on families and people. So sometimes it was really painful dredging up all those memories, and I really worried about kind of exposing my innermost demons to the world, which I guess you get the same feeling, I think, when you're posting sometimes on social media and blogs and speaking events and stuff. When you're revealing part of yourself, we worry that people are going to judge us. You can see that? Good. But it was all those personal things in the story that really resonated with an acquisitions editor eventually. So not only did I create a story that was emotionally engaging by putting those emotions and personal things into my story, but by relating it to my own life, I had also now given it marketing potential. So the fact that my heroine rode a motorbike became a selling point because I also rode a motorbike. So it made something interesting to talk about. And, when my voice kind of quivered when I talked about the effects of alcoholism and how that affected families, that engendered sympathy when I was at author talks and people could relate to that. And also even just being a chef once upon a time in a long distant life. The heroine in my book is a chef in a pub. So, all those little things gave it marketing potential. So we've all heard that stories are a powerful way to connect with our audience, but they need to elicit that emotion in the reader. So you can do that by drawing on something that you desperately wanted to achieve or that you had to fight for, or something that seemed really sort of insurmountable, but you had to overcome it, and even fears that you've had to face as well. I like to think of stories like little bridges to the important business information that we want to share. They give our audiences a way forward. Sorry, folks, I went one too far. They give our audiences a pathway, I guess, between the emotion that they're feeling and being able to understand the message that we're delivering. It gets them really connected to that message. So the more emotionally invested they are, the less critically they're going to be thinking about what we're saying. So they're going to sympathize with us, the storyteller, and become more focused and open to receiving that information and even to remembering it as well. All right. So here's a few tips for you. I guess from being a fiction author to helping me engage with readers to also can help you engage with audiences. So one, you need a hero for your story, which is probably going to be you, but you could also use a successful client if you're doing a case study or something like that. You want to let them feel your pain. So allow yourself to be a little bit vulnerable and let them into your struggles and how it affected your life, what you felt. And although your audience might not have exactly experienced the same thing, they can definitely feel empathy by relating it to a situation that's similar or something that, they've felt which is similar. Also, at the heart of all great stories is anticipation, or we like to call it suspense. By creating some kind of hook, you get the audience interested. So this means hinting at what you're going to reveal, or maybe that things aren't all what they seem, and they're not going to, they didn't start out as all well. So then you can play on their empathy by showing them what's at stake as well, which we do in stories. Show them that there was something at stake and that outcome was going to cost you something if it didn't go right. So that brings that suspense back into it again. And then, of course, you have to deliver on the anticipation and actually give them the outcome that you hinted at. And, of course, you don't want to be all doom and gloom, although, we like to play on our frustrations and struggles. Give them some hope as well. Show some little relief bits, rays of hope and little wins that you had along the way as well. And then finally, trust that your audience is going to understand your point. So don't be tempted to preach moral lessons. I do see authors do that sometimes in books. Your audience is intelligent, so let them, draw their own conclusions from what you're saying. And then last but not least, leave them with a little bit of extra anticipation by letting them know that you've got some excellent information that you're also going to share with them, whatever your call to action is. So I'll just leave you with this little slide. I hope that looking at your business story through the lens of a fiction author like me has just helped you see how the personal stories you tell and the emotions they elicit act as a bridge to connect you from your audience to the message that you're trying to get across. So hopefully you've picked up some tips there.